This is the HotFish series from the University of Stirling.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the HotFish Podcast series, where I talk to Dr. Abdullah-Al Mamun, based at the Noakhali Science and Technology University in Bangladesh. He's conducted fieldwork in the Greater Khulna region of Bangladesh, where he found some really interesting impacts of shrimp culture. Mamun, can you give us a quick overview of these systems and explain why they've been so criticised?
Thanks, Professor Dave, and hello, listener. Bangladesh black tiger shrimp culture system, locally known as white gold for its international value, has been criticized for exporting nutrients from Bangladesh, where food security is already threatened, to feed better consumers in wealthier countries. Coastal aquaculture, focusing on high value shrimp production, has also been criticized for a perceived range of negative social and environmental outcomes. The southwest coastal zone has been called a food desert in the delta, bringing benefits to a minority and causing salinization of soils that used to grow a range of food crops, and with it a loss of food sovereignty. A major criticism of shrimp farming in Bangladesh is its association with negative impacts on local diets and public health. But these criticisms have largely been based on isolated case studies, and over time we know that these systems have evolved. So my work set out to establish the situation on the ground based on looking at a continuum of how aquaculture is practiced, from full salinity to full fresh water along the saline gradient that stresses from the sea inland.
So the widespread mangrove destruction, which has generally been linked to extensive shrimp culture elsewhere in Asia, didn't seem to occur in this part of Bangladesh, I believe. The GIS studies I've seen appear to show that shrimp culture in the Greater Khulna region has largely coexisted with the Sundarbans remaining intact as the largest tract of mangrove in the world. But the coastal zone is extensive, stretching from full seawater to freshwater. And I think you looked at how and where shrimp farming occurred and how important it was to the whole community. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. We based our study on field observations from 4 communities reaching from highly saline to freshwater areas in southwest coastal Bangladesh. More than 60% households, but sometimes a much higher proportion across these communities observed were either directly involved in seafood farming or engaged elsewhere in the seafood value chain. Our study set out to establish how the type and location of aquaculture impacted on access to and consumption of aquatic animals. Additionally, we assessed the effects of both household socioeconomic status and food allocation within families on individual diet and nutritional outcomes. In addition to collecting information of what types of food were consumed over a 24-hour period, we also analyzed all the different aquatic animals consumed and for their nutritional value. Additionally, we assessed the health status of a group we felt was most likely to be vulnerable to malnutrition, adolescent girls, using N3 fat levels in their blood as a biomarkers.
So concerning what the production systems were like, I think your observations even led you to question if they were really shrimp systems at all.
Well, we found that black tiger shrimp are never raised alone. It's not a monoculture. Rather, it's a type of extensive polyculture system that also produces different types of finfish, either stocked or after they enter the ponds naturally with inflow waters. Overall, more than half the harvest is not shrimp or prawn in the freshwater areas. Although shrimp are processed and their tails exported, over 90% of the fish are consumed locally. Even nearly half of the shrimp actually stays local, as the processing byproducts such as the inner muscle of the claw, the head, and the brain have become important cultural ingredients in local diets.
So you observed local benefits to people's diets. How did these vary across better off and poorer households and in communities that farm water of different salinity?
Poorer households, although they achieved higher yields than the better off, produced less seafood because the area of ponds they stocked were smaller, sometimes much smaller. Further away from the sea, under low salinity or freshwater conditions, vegetable production becomes important and can become a significant source of income and nutrition. Although better off households consumed more fish than poorer, though there was a good deal of variability between the and within households in terms of their overall diets.
You measured the omega-3 index, which gives the level of good fats in the blood of adolescent girls and is a bioindicator of overall good health. Can you share if there are any differences between the locations you worked in and the interpretation, the results you found?
We found some really interesting results here. The omega-3 index in the young women we tested tended to decline with the salinity of the aquaculture systems in the same area. We found the highest levels and best health outcome levels in the most saline location. When we looked at the differences in their diets, we found that fish, especially tilapias, that breed and recruit in the brackish water and small mangrove fish were consumed in considerable quantities, And when we assessed omega-3 levels in all the species of fish consumed across the zone, we found higher saline environments resulted in better omega-3 levels across the range of more than 50 species.
Wow, that's interesting. And any differences in the omega-3 levels in the samples taken from poorer and better off households?
No, and that's possible, explained by the fact that the tilapias are pretty freely available at the community level. They are literally everywhere and not considered valuable.
So a key element in ensuring that nutritional benefits accrue to local people in these so-called shrimp systems is that they're not really just shrimp at all, but rather polycultures.
That's very much the case, and something policymakers really need to understand. There is tendency for them to look to optimize the high value shrimp through promoting intensification and monocultures, something that has happened very rapidly in neighboring countries. This would be a real risk to the local nutritional gains we have observed in this part of Bangladesh. We need to focus on telling our story of how the free range shrimp produced in this system is actually worth more than intensively raised shrimp produced elsewhere.
Well, I can certainly say it tastes great, and of course Western consumers are very used to paying more for free-range, naturally produced food. It also highlights the fact that the nutritional value of food is often impacted by the agroecology of the production system. Are there any implications for climate change with the systems you observed?
We didn't assess climate change impacts through the study per se, but it certainly gave rise to some interesting questions. Whereas the freshwater systems were largely fed, and thus the greenhouse gas emissions would be strongly related to them. The brackish-water systems were extensive and received very few nutrients. These shallow tidal fed systems are more likely to be carbon sinks and to retain carbon than be major sources.
But these coastal systems are surely very vulnerable to any sea level rise linked to climate change.
Yes, coastal Bangladesh is an area of particular vulnerability to salinization, especially due to coastal cyclone surges that can salinate large areas. And shrimp farming has been associated with exacerbating it as shrimp grows better in brackish water. But arguably, aquaculture as practiced is a mitigation strategy. Shrimp farming has tended to return to productivity more quickly than agricultural crops that after coastal surges have very low productivity for several years.
So aquaculture as currently practiced needs to be better understood for the complex and resilient food system it is.
Very much so. Understanding their intrinsic diversity that these systems demonstrate, and their important nutritional and livelihood benefits really needs to better known.
Well, thanks for those insights, Mamun, and to all the collaborators who were involved in this work, the EU Framework 7 and Imana programs that funded it, and of course to you for listening. Until the next HotFish Podcast, goodbye.
This podcast has been produced at the University of Stirling's Institute of Aquaculture with financial assistance from the Belmont Forum on Climate and Health. Thank you for listening.